Welcome everyone to episode 7 of the Way, a RUDIS Wrestling podcast with your host Cary Kolat and myself, Matt Dernlan. How's it going, Cary?
Good, man. How are you this week?
Good. So are you guys actually done with season, or you got another couple dual meets this weekend?
No, one more. We wrestle Davidson this Sunday, and then once we get through Davidson, then we're in that kind of like we got about a 12 or 14 day, almost 2 weeks, I think, up into conference, and then rolling to the NCAA tournament.
So this is always that time of the year when you feel like you're chomping at the bit, that you want to get to the end destination already, right? And trying to get get yourself to avoid the temptation of looking ahead, and number two, getting your guys not to look ahead, to continue to focus on the journey and getting prepared, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's where you're at, and you see some guys getting anxious. Some of the freshmen, you can kind of see it. You got to make sure you step back and pull those guys in the office every now and then, but we have one more duel. I kind of like how we finished our season. I really like the way our schedule was laid out. I only did 14 dates this year, and then the postseason. And I really kind of started doing that when I first got to Campbell. I did 14 dates, and I thought it was the right amount. Next year, I probably will do 16 dates, only because they moved Vegas on me, and I can't get there. So I'm going to have to make up for missing such a good tournament. Just because it falls during our exams. But yeah, I feel good about where the guys are at right now.
Good.
How about you? How's work? Good.
It's good. It's good. We just got back. I was out in Colorado with Sarah Hildebrandt.
Yeah.
This past weekend. We just launched her apparel line today, and so we were out there, shooting her apparel line, doing a hype video for her, and that launched a little earlier today. So it was exciting stuff. Exciting to have her on board, and grow the stable of sponsored athletes that we've got right now. So
yeah, I saw that. It's pretty cool to see the females now starting to come into mainstream and really and they've it's been around for a while, but now we're really starting to break through with it, and RUDIS being the first to do it is pretty cool, and getting these girls out there.
Yeah, and it's great, on a national level to see that it's not just, it's trickling down into high school, where more and more states are starting to sanction women's state tournaments. So I think that's great to see. I think the women's motion in wrestling is just going to continue to gain momentum. Hopefully, in a year or two, hopefully we see it transition into an NCAA sanctioned sport. I think that's going to be coming. So I think that's just going to be great for the entire sport of wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So where do you want to start tonight,
Well,
Matt?
Let's so we're jumping into chapter 7 of Switch, a book by Chip and Dan Heath. We're into chapter 7 now, and chapter 7 transitions into growing your people. And so last week we were talking in chapter 6. We talked about shrinking the change in your world to make it more feasible for your athletes or whatever profession you're in, to get your mind wrapped around something, to embrace it. And in this chapter, it seemingly on the surface talked about a different tact, but ideally what Dan and Chip are talking about, you would ideally like to combine these two chapters. You would like to shrink your world and teach your individuals how to shrink their world, but also at the same time grow them at the same time, and grow them into their system, to take ownership into what you're doing, and to get them to embrace that attitude. So this chapter really just talked about, different ways that you can get people to engage and grow in what you're actually trying to do.
Yeah, and you're right. This is it kind of like the chapter we did, in last week's podcast. They kind of overlap here, and comes out a different way. For me, like when I read through this, I feel like the biggest change. This was more of an administrative kind of a change for me. Like I knew I could get to a program and start changing guys, and that's the easy part, because you're working with them every day, you're sweating with them. Teaching them how to train, teaching them where the boundaries are. I think for a coach out here, this is when you start getting that administration behind you, and how you switch them over. And, when I first got to Campbell, I don't know how many people thought it could be changed. And that was for me, that was a big part of it, is getting the administration behind it, letting them see that we could grow this program and make changes to become a nationally competitive program, and then slowly get them on board. And now, we've done that, for the most part, through little steps of what some of the chapter talked about in terms of getting people emotionally attached to the program. And now we're kind of rocking and rolling, and the administration, I know, loves it down there.
Yeah, and I think with that, a lot of times, a lot of coaches, a lot of people don't think and don't understand how important that truly is. You need to be joined with your administration, and and I think a lot of times the problem is a lot of coaches tend to think that the administration should take a step towards us, take a step towards your program, get a better understanding of who and what you are. When by and large, most administrators, they have no idea what the sport of wrestling is. There's very few administrators out there that we're either athletes, coaches, or have really even been an administrator at an institution that has the sport of wrestling. So I think one of the biggest things that you need to do is, instead of waiting for your administrator to take a step towards you to get a level of understanding, I think you've got to put aside your pride and take a step towards them and say, "Hey, I need to aspire. I need to grow towards them. I don't need for them to grow towards me." And I think there's sometimes wrestling coaches get a level of stubbornness or a level of competitiveness with their administrators, and it leads to kind of like a tumultuous relationship. But I think, to your point, getting your administrators excited and engaged in your program, and by doing that, you it's like baby steps, right? In
Yeah.
getting them to understand what you're doing. But then what you did last week is a beautiful case in point of engaging your administration when you set your fundraising initiative and you went out and attacked that $100,000 goal. That's that's a big step towards them, meaning your administrators, showing them you have a level of understanding for what's important to them, what's important for their department, and what's important for their institution.
Right, right. And it's a big part of is getting guys. Obviously, with that fundraising, it was a lot of former alumni who we've got engaged in the program again, and brought them back, and let them. We showed them what this. They may not have realized it when they were there, and a lot of them, obviously didn't go on to be All Americans when they were at Campbell or make it to the national tournament. But we really did a good job of showing them how important it was to them of who they became because of it. And so that was the connection we were hoping to get. And then, we did that through, phone calls and videos, but getting those alumni also helps you get your administration closer to the program, because when they see the alumni are receptive, and the people who came through the program, then the administration starts to become more receptive, and they start to take a more active role and a more interested role in the program, and whatever sport it may be. But it's really important. And I really felt like this chapter was less about your team and more of that side, the administrative side and the fan side and the booster side. That's what I really got from this chapter, and I thought this is what that was really speaking to.
Yeah, and I think Chip and Dan gave a great example. They talked about uh, the island of Saint Lucia and their native bird, which was the Saint Lucia parrot. And this parrot was on the brink of this was their national bird, and it was on the brink of extinction. People were killing it. People were poaching it. People were capturing it to be pets. They actually got to the point where they didn't see this bird as a symbol of pride. They saw it as something that was disposable, or not that important. And so this individual, Paul Butler, I believe was his name, came down to the island and did all these initiatives to raise the awareness about how how the St. Lucia parrot was on the verge of extinction, and what they could do to recognize, and how they could save it, how they could recognize the importance in it, and also how they could infuse a level of national pride behind this bird. And I think that's a direct tie to what you were just saying is, you know, when you build up people and build up the people around you, build up your administrators, build up your donors, build up your fans, when you're building them up and inspiring them and getting them excited, you're in turn, as you're building strength among those masses and amongst those groups, what you're also triggering is a strength to act on a certain thing, what level, which is whatever level it is. If you're your administrator, he's inspired to give you more support for your budget or grow your scholarships. For your donors, you're inspiring them to give more to the program. Um, and for your fans, you're putting a product on the mat, and you're creating a culture and environment where they actually want to come out and follow you. Um, so I thought that was a great analogy between, saving this native bird and everything that they did to inspire hope and pride behind this bird. The same way you've got to do the same thing. You've got to, one, you have to grow strength, and once you grow strength, you inspire the conviction to act and support. And I think that that's critical with all the things surrounding the periphery of your program.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that part of the book was really good. And the funny part to that is the bird was the national bird, but no, well, it wasn't the national bird. But he had everybody believing it was the national bird by the time he was done with
Right.
his campaign, and they saved it. I mean, I think if you're a coach listening to this, here's what I would say: the first step, like if I give you any kind of like direction to it, is get your AD or get someone in your administration to jump on the bus, do an overnight trip, go with you, and see what it takes to be involved in wrestling. Like, for us, I think the big change at Campbell came. My AD, my third season went to the NCAA tournament, and he spent an entire day in the warm up room, right? And at the NCAA tournaments, like you're in this little room and you're here all day. And he sat there all day long, and I know at some point he was probably fried. And what I always liked about my AD, I mean, he wasn't a wrestler, but he gained an appreciation for the sport. He didn't have to like it, he didn't have to do it, but he gained such a appreciation for it. Even if he didn't, participate in it, that it changed him. And once you change, your boss or some of the people at the top of the administration, you can start to gather change through other administrators because they can respect you. And he spent, man, all day in that room. For him, it was sweaty, it was stinky. Some wrestler was funny because one of the nicest guys I know, a guy named Ethan Ramos, he was an All-American. I recruited him at UNC when I was there, and then I left and went to Campbell. And Ethan is by far one of the nicest individuals you ever meet, but he is such an intense, serious competitor that hates to lose. And he had just lost the All-American round and came in and with this ferocious look on his face. And he didn't throw a chair, but he picked up a chair, and he almost lost everything. And my AD asked me if we ever get in fights in the warm-up room, and I was laughing. I said, the funny thing is, that's probably the nicest guy you ever meet in our sport, but that's how seriously competitive it is. But he really changed for what we did. He could recognize how hard it was, and when you gain that kind of respect or you gain an emotional attachment, anything that gets someone attached is going to help you. And if you're a coach, man, I would get the AD on the bus, especially if it's an overnight trip, just when they can see what it takes to be a wrestler, the travel. You don't get to enjoy it like other sports. When you have to make weight, you're not interested in sightseeing. We just don't get that luxury all the time, and it's difficult for most people. But that's an easy way to get people on your side.
It really is. I mean, I've done similar things at every stop along the way. I made it a point to try and make my AD one of my best friends and one of my biggest advocates. And to do that, you've got to bring them into your world, right? And first, like we were saying before, a lot of these administrators, they've never been around the sport of wrestling. However, for some reason, they understand the stereotypes of wrestling, right? The negative stereotypes that surround it.
Yeah.
So I think you have to bring them into your world so they can actually understand and recognize what they're doing and why they're doing it. And I know one of the first things that I did at Binghamton, I really surprised my AD. We hosted a tournament every year, and it was our kickoff event for the entire season. And during my first year there, we had spent, 4 or 5 months really engaging, several times a week, talking about the program. I'd invite him into the practice room. I'd ask him to speak to the guys. And then, he got to the point where he recognized the guys. He understood the weight classes. And then at the first tournament, halfway through the day, I looked to him and I said, "Hey, why don't you sit in the corner with me?" And
Yeah.
and he's like, "What?" I was like, "If you really want to inform perspective," I was like, "get yourself inside the ropes, get in the corner, and really get into this match." And once I put him in the corner, by the end of the year, he was ready to kick me out of the corner at the NCAA tournament. He wanted to coach. He wanted to coach the guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think little things like that are oftentimes overlooked, and I think maybe sometimes coaches think this guy's too busy, or he's got 20 other programs to worry about, and he's got a budget and he's got this or that. But when you do little things like invite him on a road trip, see what it's like, to see these guys sacrifice, make weight, turn around, make weight again, compete on multiple days, get back on the bus, study for an exam, get back and get into class on Monday morning. When you embrace those guys, it's very easy to get your administrator to be a fan of your program if you're doing all the things that he's expecting you to do.
Right, right. And we just, we keep using the term administrator, but really anybody, like, I'm at a university, and we have a guy, his name's Doc Taylor, and he's been at Campbell since 1968. In fact, he's been there longer than any person on the campus now. And Doc grew up in Oklahoma. He went to Oklahoma. His brother went to Okie State. So he has an understanding of wrestling, but this guy he comes to practice every day. In fact, I think he gets upset if we have a day off. I forget to tell him, and he shows up, and he's like, "Where's everybody at?" And he travels with us, But he was a professor at the school, and now he's semi-retired. He's teaching one class. But even people like that, I mean, Doc is like one of our biggest advocates, and he's one of those people. I mean, you got to make sure you have the right people hanging around. But Doc will sit in the chairs. He went to Midlands with us. But those people are good for your team too, because they come from the academic side of the university. He's in the trenches with the guys. The guys love him. It gives the guys, they look at him and they realize he appreciates what they do. And he's on that to some extent, the academia side of the university or the administration side of the university. And so it's good to have them close. And so it doesn't always have to be your AD, but it can be somebody who's a link to those people or a link to the other parts of the school or the institution.
And I think that actually extends to your support staff outside of your coaching staff. And with that, we're talking about whoever you're fortunate to have: an athletic trainer, a strength and conditioning coach, a nutritionist, a sports psychologist, an academic counselor. When I was still in coaching, when I would talk to anybody in those support roles, I would communicate very clearly. I'm like, look, you're not an athletic trainer. You're part of my coaching staff. My academic advisor is like, you're just not giving advice to these kids. You're their academic coach. To my
Yeah.
strength and conditioner, I'm like, we're not just a cookie cutter program. Your job, you're coaching these athletes to get as big and strong and as well conditioned as they possibly can. So I tried to extend ownership from a coaching level to them, and didn't say, okay, you're just slap some tape on a guy, give him some ice. No, let's invest together. Let's come up with strategies to get these kids better in all areas. So it's a collaborative thing. I'm not just going to the academic advisor. I'm like, these are the classes they need to take,
Yeah.
right? Or this is the program I want. I tried to create a feeling and an environment where they bought in and they believed that they were part of the coaching staff. And I think that's important as well. I think a lot of times, you know, as wrestling coaches and as wrestlers, we're very private people, and we don't let people into our circle very easily. So a lot of times when you have your coaching staff, it's easy to want to really insulate yourself, because you can tend to fall into the mentality of like, nobody else understands what we're going to.
Yeah.
But you know what? Nobody can understand what you're going through if you don't share anything with them. So bringing your athletic, trainer in, bringing your strength and conditioning trainer in, bringing your, academic advisor in, and or better yet, you go seek them out and telling them to come see you. Go seek them out to invite them to engage and be invested at the same level you are. And typically they'll do that. I mean, these support people, they're looking to be engaged. They want to give, they want to buy in, they want to believe. They're passionate. They're as passionate as you are.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have to get people, like, people want to help, especially if you ask. So I mean, there aren't many people that if you ask them for help, will turn you down, right? And they want to be involved, and they like when everybody likes to be needed a little bit. I will say, you said something about being closed off, and the truth is, if you're listening to this, maybe if you're Iowa, who's got a rich tradition, or Penn State, who's rolling right now, or Okie State, which these programs have been around forever. They've got multiple national titles on the wall. Maybe they can be closed off, but if you're not one of those programs, you really can't be. Like, you have to be, if you're the head coach, you have to be out front. You have to be personable. You have to be able to have people that walk in your door be able to talk to you. And so, unless you're one of those programs, you need to be out there doing something, and building up your program, and marketing it, and vocalizing it, and getting these people involved. There's a part in this chapter, I think I overlooked it because I was still looking in that athlete side of things, and it wasn't until I became a head coach that I really believed how important. I really understood how important captains were. Like, when I was an athlete, I had my coaches like, "Look, Cary, you get a lot of attention. Do you mind if I don't make you a captain?" And I didn't care. I'm like, that's fine, And I was being a captain just by my training habits, and leading, and how I moved, and how I trained, and how I carried myself. But as a coach, there's a part in the book where they talked about, getting people to drive safely. And they had this big, ugly billboard that they would bring to people's houses and say, "Look, can we put this sign in your front yard, just to tell people to slow down and be a more responsible driver?" And it was like a big eyesore. And it was really just a test, one of these psychological tests to see what they could get people to do. And most people said no to the billboard. And then they went back to other homes and they said, "Hey, can we put this postcard size sticker in your back window that says, I'm a responsible driver. Please be a responsible driver." And they had, like, everybody agreed to that. It wasn't an eyesore. It went in your car, went in your back window. And then they went back to those same people like 2 weeks later, a week later, and said, "Hey, can we stick this billboard in your front yard?" And that's really kind of what this chapter is, right? Is grow your people. Once they got them to stick the postcard, which wasn't an eyesore in their car, they could get these same people to put a billboard that was an eyesore in their front yard. But now they were connected to a cause, right? They were emotionally attached to it. And that's where I think captain-led practices are extremely critical. Like, the other day, I was out of town, and I had my heavyweight. Now, everybody loves my heavyweights from Finland. Heavyweights are always loved. That's the way it goes, right? They're big and level. And but Jerry's a captain, and he will take. If I ask him to do something, he will do it, and he'll take it seriously. He's from Finland. He's got a high level of respect for the coaches. Even if he was mad at you, he would never disrespect you. I mean, that's the way I love. That's why I love the guy. He's kind of old school, right? And I said, "Jerry, look, I'm not going to be in. And today we're off, but I need everybody's weight down. And what I need you to do is, I need you to call them in and check their weight and write it down and not lie to me, so they know that the rules of the team are just as important to me as they are to you and everybody else." And that sets the tone for the freshmen. And the next day I got a list of guys, and I knew there'd be a bunch of guys who were fat that day, and and they paid the price, and it was probably more effective that a captain did it than I did it, because that's that buy-in, and that's that little postcard of a emotional attachment that gets people started. And then pretty soon you're sticking a billboard in your wrestling room, and everybody's rocking and rolling. So captains are really important, that as you build out your season, that you have captain-led workouts if they're mature enough to handle that kind of responsibility yet, or captain-led initiatives, at least once a week, maybe.
Yeah, and I think the way the book describes it, they describe the difference between a consequence mentality and an identity model. And a lot of times it's easy to get a change when people know there's a consequence, right? But that's
Right.
really a short-term thing. Um, you've got to get the guys and get your teams and get your captains to buy into a certain identity, and that starts with small things, right? That starts with the small sticker in the back of their windshield. And once you get them to embrace that identity, that yes, we want to be safe, we want to keep our community safe, they're willing to step on a bigger platform and go further and further outside of their comfort zone to create this identity, right? Where you can get to the point where, hey, I take pride. Not only do I talk about it, I believe it to the point where I'm willing to stick a billboard in my yard and preach from the mountaintops that this is what we believe in, right?
Right.
And that's where you get the captain's mentality to the point where they're like, "Hey, I love this team so much. I care about this program so much. I'm willing to step outside of everybody else and say, "Hey, come follow me. Do this because look what I've done. And if you follow me and if you follow the lead that I've done, all of a sudden becomes this trickle down mentality where everybody's buying into it, and all of a sudden you have that freshman that wants to take on a leadership role. And you know, one thing that I always tried to talk to my teams about was always the um, I would always tell them, don't do what we say, own what we do. And by that is like take complete ownership of it. And where to the point where you feel comfortable that you can pass these things down to every one of your teammates to the point where then you get the freshmen sticking up, standing up and wanting to lead and wanting to talk and wanting to, do the right things.
Yeah, for me it was back when I go back to when I first started Campbell was I always preached do more on less. I really wanted the guys to identify that we could do more on less because when I got there, you can't go banging on the doors and say I want this and this and this and this, right? Like I knew this administration needed to see change before the investment was going to come. And so that was what I always preached to my guys. Don't cry about what you don't have and or what gear you don't have. We're going to do more and less. That's our identity. And that was kind of the chip on our shoulder when we went places. You got all your fancy gear. You rode in that big bus. So we had to do more and less mentality, and that's how we went after people and attacked people. And then we saw the payoff down the road. Our administration saw changes and bought in and started to really identify with the program and what we were doing. And from that point, it's been change after change after change.
No, for sure. And to your point in talking about what we were referencing, where this is more of an administrator chapter as opposed to a team chapter, I think, I always adhered to the same mentality because at most programs, at many emerging programs like Campbell, when you step in the door, like you can't come in and say, you can't ask for the world because that's just not realistic. That's not possible. It's out of the realm of possibility. So you have to take on the mentality of I'm going to prove to my administrators what I can do with what I've got before I ask for something. Right? Where I think a lot of people they come in and they're new to a program and they're just beating their fist on the table with their AD like I need this, I need more budget, I need more scholarships, I need more travel budget, whatever it is. But really, I think to get the administration to really jump on your side, you've got to show them what you're willing to do with what you've got. And if you can show that you can produce with the restrictions that they're giving you, then you can actually show them like then you can go for the ask. And I think it's the same thing with fundraising. One of the reasons why we did our tournament every year and we raised about $25,000 a year, which is great for a program of Binghamton's size. But when I went out to my donors and asked them for money, I gave them a laundry list of things the program was doing themselves. Like, hey, we're running a program. We're raising $25,000 a year. We're running this club for the local community. So we're not only servicing the community, but we're generating money for the program through this club. And that way it's a lot more tangible to go in for an ask when you've said, hey, we're doing our part. I'm asking you to do your part before I'm asking you to step up, I'm asking the guys and myself and the team to step up as well.
Right. Right. Yeah, and people want to see that, right? The
Yep.
president of your school, your AD, they want to see that your team is in there. That was the big part for us is making sure that our guys really are connected, right? And the coaching staff is not doing everything. So we really do try to do everything as a group where it makes sense. Like the guys they're training twice a day. Some guys 3 times a day. They're going to school. Like you gotta watch. You can't burden them down and lay a ton of things on them. But anytime you can engage them, because they respond better. There's more of a buy-in when you do it that way. And it's just the way it has to be, and you have to really make sure you're conveying that to everybody around you, and you're starting to get administration to identify with you and at least respect you. And that's, I said, like taking the AD on the bus, or taking a professor on the bus or a teacher on the bus, and let them spend a weekend with you to see, like, they can start to identify with your part of their school, and what you guys go through, to getting your captains engaged, and letting them run practice. And you literally pull off to the side, so your team sees that, hey, it's not that the coach is leading, it's all of us, and the captains are involved in it. And you just got to really go through, and you can't do it all. Like, I think the one thing, I think the best thing about this book, it really is, we always come back to really two principles, right? We're coming back to make people change. You have to speak to the writer, but you really have to engage the elephant, the emotional side of someone. So there's not too many things to work on. If you keep coming back to those two principles and everything you approach and everything you do, well, then you can make people move. You don't have a million things. It's like technology, right? Every time you turn around, there's some new app out or something that we can do this and this, but you can't do too much. You get lost. And that's why I think this book is a really good read for everybody.
No, without a doubt. I mean, you have to be selective, and a lot of times it's as simple as like identifying the critical points. Like in this book, it's the emotional and the rational side. This is the biggest thing that you've got to identify in people. These are the two major things: your emotion and your rationale. And if you can identify, and when you identify every situation and relate it back to those two things, you can probably create your own path on how to navigate whatever situation that is when you understand the emotional and the rational side of things, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What else, man? What else you got going on this week, Matt?
Well, I'm getting ready for another trip to China. So
You're going again, huh?
another going again. So as you're getting ready to ramp up this next month for the postseason, we're doing the same thing here at RUDIS. We're getting ready to ramp up the 2019 shoe cycle. So we're
Yeah.
developing new models, developing new construction, honing in our quality and all these things that we've learned over the course of the last year with the shoe. We're trying to, do everything that we've been talking in this book. We're trying to change as well, and trying
Yeah.
to make a bigger, better wrestling shoe. So, you know, there's a lot of exciting things around that. And so I'm interested. So you're basically a month out. What are the three or four things that you're really focusing in now with your guys and the team, trying to put you over the tipping point for the end of
bonus
the year?
points bonus
Yeah.
points are, we're going to be, we're going to, more than likely, not to get ahead of ourselves, but this Sunday, us beating Davidson, we should lock up the SoCon conference title. So that's something we've never done as a program. Now it's being shared between two other schools. We all, we beat App beat UTC beat us. And it's kind of like the same. Penn State and Iowa sharing the Big Ten title, but I'd rather not share it, but it's something we haven't done as a program. So, we talked about the chapters, shrinking the goals a little bit, and it's, I don't want to be the king of the SoCon. I want to be a nationally ranked program every single year, but it's something we haven't done. So we celebrate it. We move on. Bonus points in the room. That's our focus right now, is really getting guys to continually wrestle from the takedown all the way through, not take those little mental breaks, not score a takedown and take a break and get into a riding situation, get right to the turn, or lose a takedown, get right to the escape. And then we always do something. There's always something outside of wrestling to do. Like right now, my big focus is marketing. I really want to start getting more engaged on the marketing side of my program. So we're getting ready to make some changes with staff, and in terms of, we're going to bring someone on to do our social media and do some video and do some event marketing for us. And then, we have a 3,000 seat arena, and my goal is to fill it up next year. Is to absolutely, fill every single seat up. So when the guys walk into the arena, it's packed, and it's an exciting place to compete in. And that's part of, a program. You can't just sit. It's not always just training. Like, heck, man, a lot of guys win a lot more when there's a lot of people in the arena, like they find ways
Heck
to
yeah.
win, and
Yeah.
that's an identity thing, it's an identity thing. Campbell's got to get to the point where you wear a Campbell singlet, you're expected to win, and there's 3,000 fans in there. And I think a lot of people think that it can't be done, but I'm going to do it next year. We're gonna fill up every seat, and my guys are already excited about it. We've got a couple things on the drawing board of how we're going to do it. Same way we attacked the fundraising. We raised a lot of money in one day, and I think a lot of people thought we were crazy when we set that goal. Now we fell a little bit short, but I think we're going to fill up this arena next year and make Campbell a really exciting place to come and wrestle at.
And not only is it going to be an identity thing for the guys on the team, it's going to be an identity thing for your community.
Yeah.
Because look at what you're doing. I mean, you won the SoCon title. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you've had the most dual meet wins in your tenure at Campbell. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, the bar was set really high my first year when I was 0-12. So
yeah, but
even the
I'm
next
saying,
year
like,
was like 1-10. Yeah,
your community, the community wants to identify with the winner too, right? And
yeah,
so if you're telling these people, hey, we want to pack a 3,000 seat arena out, when they buy their ticket, they're one of the factors is, well, are they going to win? Because if I'm going to spend my money, I want to see them win, right? And you've
right,
created you're starting to create the expectation that when you enter your arena, you're going to put on a fantastic product for the fans, and it's going to be a winning product that they can identify with, that the community can identify with, and therefore the administrators are going to start following suit as well.
yeah, yeah. Reading this book again, like I told you, I've read this book a couple times, and I got to go back. I forget things, but going through this again with you, my wheels are spinning on a couple ideas that I have, and I can't let them out of the bag yet. But how I'm going to do it, because I know I can market it and make it happen, and I feel like I got to be the guy that does it. I have to lead and make it happen, so I can show people it can be done, and then once it's done, then hopefully you pass the reins off and people are on board when you prove to them, hey, you can do it if you just got the right plan. And I think we're going to have the right plan by next season.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I'm really excited with everything that's going on. I'm excited for you for the next 4 weeks and everybody that's gonna make it to Pittsburgh and hopefully get some guys on the podium there.
Yeah.
So really looking forward to following your journey here the next month.
Well, awesome, man. Well, I appreciate talking to you again tonight. And again, if you're following along, Matt and I are reading the book "Switch" by Dan and Chip Heath, and you can get it on Audible. We don't get any money for this book. You can get it on Audible or get the hardcover if you like to read the hardcover still. But yeah, it's a great book if you're a head coach or anybody in any program or any organization. It's got awesome insight on how to get people moving in the same direction and really make some changes pretty rapidly if you do it correctly. But well, man, I appreciate it, man. You have a good night, okay?
All right, brother. Take care. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Bye.